Come on back to your seats, although you're welcome to pop up anytime and do whatever you want while I'm talking. I would like to have the questions brought up while I'm talking, even if it's not related to the point I'm talking about, because let's cover as much as we can here. I'm going to talk about the new coordinator manual, which has anybody got a copy or remember the old coordinator manual? It's like 40 pages long with lots of drawings and lots of la 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 la. So that's not me. Yeah. So we're still working on this. We have a first draft, and we're not giving you the manual today. We'll probably roll it out in the first quarter of next year, our fiscal year being starting in July. So anything that you give me as far as input, we can certainly still build into the manual. And the goal of the manual is to tell you what, like basically the mission of Second Harvest, our relationship with Feeding America, and then more about the roles and responsibilities that we have and that you have, and give you some support and tools and resources. So I'm going to go over just the things I'm kind of are the main points I want everybody to hear today. And again, a lot of this has already been said by Michelle or by my boss, Megan, so I won't dwell on those things. The recording's okay? Okay, if you have a question during this presentation, go ahead and just shout it out. I'm going to probably repeat it so the recording can capture it, and then I'll answer it. Okay, so key points. Okay, so as you've already learned, there's a lot of different people involved in making a mobile happen. And so it's not just Andy and I who are back here at the office, it's all these other people. So we're the mobile reps, and order manager is Katie right now. You're going to see a little video from her. She's the person that knows intimately what's in the warehouse, how much time is left on it, and where it could go if it's in the volume that you need. So she's a master at that. It's amazing. And then there's the warehouse and transportation staff. I'm so glad to hear that some of you are making note about how competent and friendly your drivers are. Feel free. We've gotten an okay from the transportation manager to put those drivers to work. You know, if you've got the pallets arranged this way and you look at it and it's like, no, get him down there and he'll move the pallets somewhere else. Okay, he wants you happy before he pulls the truck away. Okay, and then of course the community partner, again, that's like the highest level of authority that's supporting the mobile. If you don't have one yet, we probably already know it and we'll be working with you on getting one. And if you do have one, we may need to work with them on what their responsibilities are because they might not know. Lana?
Did you read words with our church?
It's the Methodist Church.
Yeah.
So the community partner agreements will need to be signed by the end of June. So I'll figure out, like, you can tell me who is it, the minister that would be in charge? Or?
We have a new minister.
Okay, yeah, I will work with that. The mobile coordinator is you, leadership team, and then the volunteers that you have. And then outside organizations, we haven't touched on that yet, but some of you have seen other groups like insurance companies or like free health clinics and stuff that want to come and share materials at the mobiles. The reason we support that is because, you know, we can provide food, but there are so many other resources available to people in the income level or in those areas that are kind of remote from metro areas. And it just makes sense to get them all that information in one place. The commitment we have to you, though, is that we will not allow more than 2 at a time. And like, it wouldn't be 2 insurance companies. It would have to be 2 separate things. And as you know, if someone says they're interested in distributing materials, there's a process that will go through, and you have a link in the bottom of your, does everybody know that the menu note that we send you has all those links in the bottom? So if someone says, I want to come and hand out something at the next mobile, you say, okay, here's the link, you copy that, it's the outside resources something. And then they'll have to go through the form and go through our own internal approval process. And we will not approve anything that's kind of controversial. So you can trust that once it's been approved by us, we're comfortable in sharing that with everybody. And then the local donors we did talk about. I'm sorry, Bill.
Is there a way Second Harvest can help us with outside organizations? Because I know there's a group that provides like dental hygiene.
Yeah.
But for us to do it individually versus Second Harvest saying, hey, we've got X number of mobiles, would you be interested in having a rep go to these mobiles and pass out toothbrushes, toothpaste,
Right.
whatever?
And the process that they have to go through, so you just tell them, go to the link. And what that, you haven't had to walk through that link yourself. We ask them, who they are, if they're a nonprofit or if they're for profit. We want to know that. We give them, we say we need a copy of your materials to review. And then we give them the whole calendar of all the mobiles. And they can, say, I want to go to this one and this one and this one and this one and this one. And then when it's approved, if it's approved, I will send a note to each of you coordinators and saying, expect Mary from the Free Dental Health Clinic to come. She's passing out stuff. Because you need to figure out ahead of time where you want her to stand and do her thing. So, yeah. And I would encourage, if you know people are asking you that, first, it's not on you to have to decide or tell them anything. Just send them to that link. And then, like some of the people that have inquired over the last year or so, we didn't allow because they were insisting on in-person conversations with people. Well, we weren't going to allow that during COVID. So, but they are starting to come up again. Okay, next. Okay. I like to think of this as a new normal that we're coming into. The people that you've all been around long enough to know what it was like before COVID. And we had a pretty clear set of requirements of everybody. Not everybody was interpreting them the same way, and they were a little like we were making exceptions and things like that. So in the new manual and in our discussions, we wanted to focus on let's only require those things that are really necessary to require and to make sure everybody's doing them the same way. And mostly that's related to safety. The safety of the food and the volunteers and the people that come. So, and that's my first point. So across all of the mobiles, that's our priority. And you will see us, I'm going to give you a lot of tools to ensure safety. Andy and I, as we're coming to the mobile, we might take you aside and point out, that turn that they have to make there, it's kind of not really safe. They could cut off some, we might point out a safety issue that we see because you might not notice it because you see it the same way every time. So we will take that responsibility and try and make sure everything's set up safely. Equitable access and confidentiality. And Christina's over there. She's going to talk more about this sort of thing. But we really, and this kind of touches on what Michelle was saying too, we want the mobiles to be a welcoming environment for everybody. We don't ask anything of them other than, how many people in your family. We don't know their story. My favorite phrase is don't judge my story by the chapter you walked in on. And so let's not put ourselves in the position to have to ask those things. So we've really backed off those kind of nosy questions that we used to ask. And Christina, will you tell us more about what you mean by equitable? The thing you told me yesterday about it, if they're off to the side and stuff like that. You're probably going to touch on it anyway, but.
Hi everyone, my name is Christina. We're going to go over that in the afternoon session, but essentially what it's going to be discussing is making sure that we're not contributing to any delays, denials, or differential services when we're supporting when we're supporting guests. And so equitable meaning we need to provide as much support as people arrive to receive food. So there isn't the perception of discrimination, but we're going to go over that in the afternoon.
Yep. And then the confidentiality, of course, we've never asked for people's names, but even if you know someone's name and know their situation at home, we expect confidentiality, and you're not talking to other volunteers about it, and certainly not going out in the community and saying, oh, did you know that so-and-so comes to the mobile? I don't see that happening with this group, but certainly we want to watch out for that. The nutritious menu, that's already been covered. I will say that pre-COVID, our philosophy was more fill the belly, and our goal was to send 60 pounds of food, and it didn't matter what the food was. That was just the philosophy of Second Harvest at that time, and a lot of food banks and a lot of pantries. And so when Michelle joined us and brought this different perspective, it's very welcome, and we're really glad. So now we have that nutritional guideline that we follow. We have, 2 protein and 3 produce and blah, blah, blah. And I have no idea how much that weighs. We still, as a food bank, all of our stats and everything are how many pounds did we move this year or whatever. But as far as what we're getting to the individuals that we're supporting, we're more worried about giving them nutritious food than just pounds of food. Anybody object to that?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
It is welcoming to see the fresh produce, but I know it's been done before where you provide recipes. So like we've had bok choy. Well, people come through and they don't
Could
know
you
what
write
to
a
do
note?
with it. You know, so
Mhm.
it's nice if they have a recipe that we can provide.
I see a bunch of people taking notes back there. We actually have people in the organization now who are focused on nutritional outreach. And so it is something we sort of talked about, and we will definitely follow up with them. Bok choy and jicama. Didn't you all get jicama this month? Things like that. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that sort of bridges that the tentativity people might have about trying something new. So that's a really good point.
Laura,
Yeah.
how do you see the price of meat impacting what Second Harvest is going to be able to do for us?
Meat is well, we get some meat donated, and I don't think anybody's going to be talking about actually the source of our food. I know just enough to be dangerous. We get a lot of stuff donated. So remember, the packages of meat that are from like Walmart where the yellow sticker's on there, and that's been donated. But we need to provide a protein every time, so we will be purchasing. And the chubs, the ground beef and the ground chicken, tuna, canned chicken, things like that. Those are things we have to purchase. And the commitment is that there will be, worst case scenario, it's if your two produce things are peanut butter and bacon, Ooh, that sounds like a good sandwich to me. But
We're talking about the bok choy and jicama. If you used to send recipes.
oh, that's what she was asking. I'm sorry. I forgot to repeat your question. Yeah, she was saying when there's a recipe included, it's much more likely that people might actually take it. Especially now that you're moving to choice, if they see bok choy, they say, "Oh, I don't want that." We had collard greens in Baraboo or in Beloit. I thought people would turn those down, but they didn't. Yeah.
Well, here's a recipe.
Yep.
For it. Try it, you might like it.
Yep, that's a great idea. Okay. So before pre-COVID, our strategy was one portion per person household that comes through. And even at that time, we know some people were gaming the system, like a married couple might register as two different households and come through at different times. And you will hear me say this over and over. If that's what they need to do to get enough food and to feed their household, then let them do it. We don't question it. But during COVID, we saw all different kinds of combinations of how you would get food to the people that needed it, whether or not they were in the car, okay? And so we sort of melded the two together and said, we have to acknowledge that it's helpful for people to pick up food for other people. And we don't want to make them wait until the very end to see if there's any food left to do it. So our new proxy process is also in the works. Volunteer data. As you know, we're asking for the number of volunteers and the volunteer hours right now. One of the reasons we're moving toward that is because as a 501c3, we have reporting that we have to do, and the number of volunteers is really important. Sometimes it's important for the grants that we might receive to be able to document we have this many volunteers working on our behalf to do that. So we'll continue to do the volunteer data. One thing that's kind of different is that instead of doing t-shirts like this fine young man over here is modeling for us, the bright orange t-shirt, we're not going to hand out t-shirts anymore. And it was kind of inconsistent anyway. It kind of looks like a uniform, and it kind of makes a visual like these are the people who have people in uniform, and these are the people who don't have, who they're helping. And, there's some dynamics there that we wanted to get away from. But we are going to ask that you, as volunteers, have a name tag, and we're supplying them for you. And the reason for that is to give you more cohesion as your team. Think about like if you wanted to go and volunteer at something and all the people that are there, have been working together for years, and you go in and you don't know anybody's names and they don't know your names, how you don't really feel involved, and it's difficult to like break into the clique. So we do want you to give your volunteers name tags, just sticky ones, and they'll throw them away every time. Leftovers, we've already talked about that. We'll fix the leftover problem. Okay, next slide. So those are like the key things that we expect to be similar across the board for everybody. This is the stuff that you get to tweak yourself, to Bill's question before about the flexibility and the, go ahead.
Should I ask about large families?
I don't have that answer yet. How we'll do it, but I don't know how we'll do it. So she had, yes. So no, I'll bring it up, and it probably happens other places too. So Ann's in Beloit, and there are certainly a lot of families that register who say there's 7, 8, 9 people in the family or in the household. And we need to have a way to provide them more than one portion. So the reason I say I'm not sure how is I'm not sure if it'll be part of the proxy program or a different vehicle for doing that, but we will recognize and treat them that way. Okay, so promotion is one of the things that's in the MOU, I think. It's not something we've focused much on, but you are the ones that know how to get the news out in your neighborhood. Whether it's like when I was in Adams, I put together an email list of all the churches, and I called all the churches and said, are you willing to put the announcement of the mobile into the bulletin every month, And so I would just shoot it out on an email list. Or some groups might have a Facebook page where they can put it out. We're happy to help you develop some regular promotion if you're not already doing it. My suggestion is, if you don't like to do it, to delegate it to someone else in the community. It doesn't even have to be one of your mobile volunteers, but maybe a high school kid or something that likes to get online and do stuff like this. So we'll work with you on that, but we do need it. We need the word to get out locally, and then we also need you to develop those avenues of communication so that in an emergency or when there's a change, you can go to those same people, like maybe somebody at your local radio station that you have a relationship with now, and say, okay, we need your help. You got to put this on the air right now. And our communications director, Chris Taslar, who's going to come in later, and his crew will help us develop the list of media personnel in your own areas. So we'll work with you on that. Volunteer roles, you have total autonomy to figure out who's going to do what. If you want to delegate or do everything yourself. Oh, I hope nobody does that. And the training, that you're giving them, or others that are in the same position are giving them, that's totally up to you. Site logistics, indoors or outdoors. And, the indoor distribution, I would say that 90% of the mobiles were indoors before COVID. And that, as long as you can get those pallets in the door, that works nice, and people can walk around. And what's nice about that is the socialization and the direct communication that you have with people. So a lot of you are not going back to that, and that's fine, because the drive-through model has become really popular. There's good reasons for doing that too. People don't have to stand in line. They're sitting in their cars, however they're burning gas. So again, this is recognition of what we learned in COVID, carrying it into what our new normal is. So it doesn't matter to me whether you do your distribution indoors or outdoors or a combination of the two. At least a couple groups load up everything and pack everything indoors and put it in shopping carts and then take it outdoors. So it's all going to depend on your site, the size of your parking lot, the facility that you're at, whatever. And then how you incorporate choice. And I know that this is kind of the elephant in the room for some people, because it's like, if we're doing a drive-through, we can't ask them about every individual item. Well, I beg to differ. So in Beloit, she's blessed with a large group of volunteers, and that's why it's feasible for you. So she has 2 different tables, 2 cars pull up, and then there's this line of like 8 volunteers, and they each have 1 or 2 products, and they go to the window and say, canned corn and canned beets, and the person says, don't give me none of those stinking beets, but I'll take the corn, and then they go to the back and put it in there. And that works wonderfully. I mean, that's like the Cadillac version. I don't expect that from everybody, obviously. And if you all of a sudden lost half your volunteers, you wouldn't be able to do that either. So be flexible. It's not about speed. It's about getting the right food to the people. And, you know, you got a lot of leeway. I can help you with the implementation of choice. Andy can help you with that. And we've got some good ideas, and we'll share best practices among other groups. So I know that we did give you a deadline of, yeah, and we need to hear what the plan is before then. So we want to start in July. So we'll just kind of check in and see who hasn't sent us. We'll follow up with all of you and just like talk through the steps you want to take and see where we can help.
One request, and I know you're gonna tell me it can't happen, but I'll ask anyway. As far as the choice, what we were doing, we talked with you and Andy about it, we made a list and we would hand it out to the people as they were coming in line. And then they had a list of what was food that was being offered. And then they would simply say, when the food was being loaded into their car, I don't want this item. Is there a way that we
Go to the
can
next
get
slide.
that food list earlier than the day before? Because
Go to the next one.
if I have to run those off and get them ready and cut them and everything else, then.
Yeah, you stinker, because we can produce that list, and it's called internally the 6 Up. So when we look at the menu and we're sending you the menu, we can easily make this little list for you, and what I'm describing is a piece of paper with 6 little lists of the food. Okay, we can produce that, attach it to that email. You need to copy it on your end, just because that's the sure way for you to have it. I can't trust necessarily that it would get in the truck if I copied it. And if you're going to do that, you tell me what your printer is, and we'll give you, a set of ink, and we'll give you paper and everything you need to do that. So what he's talking about is this option, where Ann and Beloit is doing it and asking them what they want. What Bill is doing, and I know some others of you are, is saying, what don't you want? So inside, because they're loading inside, they put everything in the cart. And then when the cart goes out, whoever is helping load will say, was there anything, because we gave them a list ahead of time, was there anything on that list that you didn't want? And they'll say, well, I'm gluten-free, so don't give me the bread. So the person who's loaded the cart just has to take out that item and put it somewhere. And that provides them with a choice. What's my time? And reduces waste and all the reasons. I mean, I skipped over the whole slide I had about choice because you've just been hearing it from everybody here. And that way, still you're going to get 90, 95%, maybe 98% that will still take everything. But the fact that you ask them whether they want everything or not, that's the component that provides choice.
So Michelle talked about this before, but the Second Harvest putting together boxes was a COVID thing, and you're going to, now as you move back to choice, you're going to be, as I understand it, there's going to be less boxes packed. Let's say, so at what point, what are we planning for? When we're asking them what they want, is that we're asking them, do you want the produce box? Do you want the cooler box? Because there's 10 things in there.
Yep.
So there's
okay. So you're a little different. You guys are a little different because you're in Dane County, and we have grant money to provide food in a different way than Dane County. And so the Dane County mobiles get 3 separate boxes still of food, a cooler box, a produce box, and a dry box. And then we supplement with some other fresh items. So yes.
But that's going away. Yeah, in time. That will.
After June.
In time. That's not going to,
not for a long time though. We got a good generous amount of time left on that. So, and this is about the pre-packed produce boxes too. If that's the item that's on your menu list, then your little slip that you would say it would be the cooler box and people, especially people who've come before, will know what is in there. But if someone's brand new, you can open up that box and show them. You might want them to pull over and say, okay, we're going to give you this stuff. You know, if there's anything that you don't want, take it out. We'll take it back. because we don't want to send food home with people and have them feel guilty that they're not using it. We've had people, we had a Stoughton mobile or food pantry call and say, stop giving your people so much food. It ends up on our back door and nobody's there to pick it up. And it was just spoiling. People were just like leaving boxes of Second Harvest boxes of food. And so we had to put a big sign on the door. So that it puts them in a position to make that decision, and that's not what we want to do.
I think I'll jump in quick and say to your other question about could we get it sooner? Unfortunately, the answer is no. We're going to be watching a video, and basically what it comes down to is our inventory turns over so fast and so often that we don't have a big window of time to know what's here, put it on an order, communicate it, and get it on a truck. So unfortunately, that window doesn't really have much flexibility. But that's what we're learning about that.
Right, and now, for the most part, we're able to send you that menu the morning of the day before, but the commitment is by 2:00. So if you get it before 2, you're lucky. And it's been pretty consistent. But one example, like Katie, again, is the ordering person, and she took vacation for a little while, so she trained me how to do it. And I was like, oh my God. So one of the things is she might have an item on an order because she knows a truck 3 days from now is bringing that item in. And so until that item is here and accounted for and put into the inventory, she can't actually lock it in. So that's why that sort of thing happens. So it might be, I mean, she knows it's coming. It's going to be really good stuff. She wants to send it to Beaver Dam, but it's not going to be in inventory till Friday morning. So she'll wait, and then we can.
Get extra add-ons.
Oh, yeah. That's because you have so many volunteers that are so, yeah.
I've got a question. If you go back to choice and you're not pre-bagging anything for them.
It's not necessarily the same thing. Keep going with your question, but.
Like we'll package things together
Mhm.
ahead of time, and that'll be the dry bag or whatever. If we go to choice and we do individual items like Ann does, are we going to have to tell our clients next month we're going to start this? You have to bring shopping bags or boxes or what?
No. So if you're bagging like things together, I would recommend that do you tie them at the top?
Yeah, I think they are.
Yeah.
We've been tying them because otherwise we put them in the
tie
car
them.
and they.
All right. Can you tie them just once and not into a knot? Yeah, because then you would need to say, I mean, we would produce that little list of all the food things. And how do you do it, Bill?
We bag it, and we have been, if they say they don't want, like, let's say oranges, and we've got oranges, pears, and apples together, then we tear the bag open, and individually, we know that those bags have fruit in. And then they have to tear the bag open.
But do you really tear the bag open? Are you're tying it in a knot?
Because no, if we tie them once and they put them in the cart, those bags come open.
Okay, I would say learn how to, or try and make them so they're not tied. And just, you can knot it, but maybe not pull it all the way or something.
Some of our clients from pre-COVID are used to bringing containers.
Yes, and some groups are going back to that. And in the, when you transition to your own new choice model, probably everybody's going to need some kind of informational flyer to hand out to people ahead of time. We would like to, that's why, okay, I wanted to know what your model is. We need to know before the end of May if we can, so that for your June mobile, we can give you a flyer that says, just be aware that next month we're starting this, and you should bring your wagon and your bags or whatever you need for them to do for that model. Does that make sense?
Laura, I'm really prejudiced in this whole thing because what we do works so very well. And one time one of the volunteers, he's a manager at his job, and so he tried to manage the line.
Oh, yeah.
And he had the list, and he was saying, here, what don't you want? It did not work. And what we do is each volunteer is assigned 2 or 3 foods, and takes them to the window, rotates to the trunk, puts it in. If you don't want it, don't put it.
It is very slick. It is very slick.
It works very well.
And that's.
We're not ripping bags. We're not taking things out of bags. We're not having to bag to begin with.
Did you say you had boxes, Ann?
we use the boxes that are there, and we've been very fortunate that we have been okay with the boxes.
And would you welcome other folks to come to your mobile if they want to observe this?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I describe to them, how we do it. If anybody at lunch wants, I could describe it or do it.
Let's do a video.
I mean,
I'll do a video. I could record it next week. Yeah, I'll take a video of it, of the process. But again, it's dependent on, well,
If we had individual boxes to do that, that would be fine, but at our mobile, we've got to bag everything beforehand because as you know and Annie knows, we only have so many hours that we can be in that building. So we have to bag all of it and put it on pallets. And then people are going around. That's the other reason we double time, because when we stack them all up on pallets and you go to grab the bag, they grab it wrong and you've got apples, pears, and bananas all over the floor.
Yep.
So
and that's, you figure it out. You guys are the ones that can figure it out for your volunteers, for your space. And as long as you're giving them the option to say, oh, rip that bag open and take out those nasty oranges. I don't want those oranges. And we do like that the stuff is not rolling around in people's trunks.